Okay, welcome ladies and gentlemen, and right now we're going to look at a new law, and it is the cosine law, and I'm only going to look at it for sides at the moment. So let's start off by a naming. We're going to name this triangle. So if I'm going to arbitrarily call this vertex A, this will be little a. If I call that B, this will little b, and if I call that C, that'll be little c. So we have a naming now. Now here's the cosine law. And the cosine law, I'm not going to memorize or try to teach you as a formula. I'm going to teach it to you as a relationship. So let's say I wanted to find this side length. Well, that side length has an angle that's opposite to it. That's important. And what we're going to do is I'm going to tell you for the first time that a squared will be equal to the other two side squareds. So c squared plus b squared minus 2, the other two side squareds, cosine the angle opposite the side I'm trying to get. So this will be big A, that'll be little a. Now, that's a pattern, and it doesn't matter if I put B before C here and B before C here, that doesn't matter. What matters is that this is the side I'm looking for, these are the other two sides, and this is the angle opposite the side I want. Now, let's try that again. But let's try it for B this time. So B has an angle that's opposite it. So B squared, using the cosine law, is the other two side squareds. Subtract 2 times the other two sides. Now here you can stop and take a breath and say to yourself, so what law is this? It's the cosine law, not the sine law, not the tan law. It's the cosine law, so we put cosine there, the angle opposite. And that's it. So this is getting fairly easy. So if I wanted C, it's going to be c squared equals the other two side squareds. Subtract 2, the other two sides, cosine, because it's the cosine law, C. And once again, big C, little c, big B, little b, big A, little a. Now, if you were in grade 10 academic, you probably went and memorized these. I'm going to suggest you don't memorize those at all, but we memorize the pattern. Let's take a look at an example. So here's an example. It's a non-right triangle, first of all. Being a non-right triangle means I cannot use Pythagorean theorem and I cannot use SOHCAHTOA. So the trigonometric ratios do not apply. So then I look for the sine law. Do I have a side and an angle opposite? I do. Do I have another side with an angle opposite? I don't know that angle. I have another side with an angle opposite? I don't know that angle. This will not work for the sine law. Convince yourself of that. I have a side that I don't know and an angle opposite, but I don't know the other angles, so I can't use the sine law here. So I'm going to use the cosine law. I'm going to remember the pattern. The pattern was x squared, always x squared, equals the other two side squareds, subtract 2, the other two sides multiplied together, cosine the angle opposite the side I want, which is 120. And that's doing that question without a formula. That's a relationship. I then grab my calculator. Now how you use your calculator is up to you, and every calculator will be different. Some calculators, you can put the whole thing in at once and just hit equals. That's pretty cool. Mine you can't. I'm going to start here at 120 cosine. I get this decimal, which is decimal 0.5 negative. I'm going to multiply that by 25 and hit equals. I'm going to multiply that by 20 and hit equals. I'm going to multiply that by 2 negative. 2 negative. That means that this whole thing, including the negative, is plus 500. So this whole thing now, I know in my calculator is plus 500. So I'm going to add 25 squared, and I'm going to add 20 squared, and I get 1,525. But that's x squared. So I need to square root both sides. I'm in grade 11 math. I'm smart this year. That means I know that there's two answers, a positive and a negative. We get to omit the negative. Do you know why we get to omit the negative? because we're after a length. That's why you get to omit the negative. Now, if you know why you're omitting it, you don't have to write since x is length, but you better know what you're doing. You can just say omit negative as long as you know, but I will ask you at times. So x equals 39.05 centimeters. And that's the answer. That's all it took. Let's look at the next one. You can pause the video now and give this one a try. So I'm going to jump in and do it. I'm going to look. I've got x, I've got a side, and an angle opposite it. I have the other sides, but I don't know their angles that are opposite it, so I can't use the sine law. So jumping in and using cosine law, it's going to be x squared equals 150 squared plus 115 squared minus 2, 150, 115. Cosine, because it's the cosine law, 59. Like every year I get kids doing the cosine law and they put sine here. I do not understand that. It's the cosine law. Okay, so using your calculator, 59 cosine times 115 equals times 150 equals times 2 negative is, so my calculator's telling me that this whole thing is negative 17768.8135, and I don't care. I'm never going to write that out. I did it just so that you knew what I was doing. So this is a negative. That's fine. I'm going to add to it a positive 115 squared equals. I'm going to add to it a 150 squared equals. And I'm going to get x squared equals 17956.18642. I'm going to square root that. X equals plus or minus 134.00. Omit the negative. And so x is going to equal 134.00 meters. Now, notice I kept the 0.00 because I want it rounded to 2 decimal places. And you could get away with skipping this line. So you could simply go from here to here to here, and I would be a happy camper. And this is probably a 3 to 4 mark question, even though you're only showing me 3 steps. All right, do the rest of the practice. We'll be back.